When we think about getting people to open up, most of us instinctively try to prove we're trustworthy, likable, or relatable. We talk more, share more, and hope the other person will feel safe enough to open up in return. But psychology offers a surprising twist on that logic, one that flips the script in a way that's almost counterintuitive, yet incredibly powerful. It's called the Ben Franklin effect. Now, the story behind this is actually kind of brilliant. Benjamin Franklin once had a political rival who clearly didn't like him. Instead of confronting him or trying to win him over with compliments or favors, Franklin asked the man for a small favor, to borrow a rare book from his personal collection. The man, flattered and a bit surprised, agreed. He lent him the book. Franklin returned it with a thank you note. From that point on, their relationship shifted. The man, for reasons he couldn't fully explain, became more open, even friendly, toward Franklin. Psychologists have since studied this behavior and found something fascinating. When we do a favor for someone, even a small one, we tend to like that person more. It's not because they earned it, but because we need to make sense of why we helped them in the first place. Our brains don't like contradiction. So, if we've done something kind for someone, we subconsciously justify it by assuming we must have warm feelings toward them already. That, right there, is the Ben Franklin effect in action. So how does this help us get someone to open up? Let's say you're trying to connect with someone new, maybe a colleague, a new friend, or even someone you're mentoring. Instead of launching into your life story or trying to earn their trust by offering support right away, try this instead. Ask them for a small piece of advice. Something simple but specific like, "Hey, you seem to be great with managing your schedule. How do you stay on top of everything?" Or even, "You mentioned you like photography. What camera would you recommend for a beginner?" What's happening in that moment is subtle but powerful. First, you're signaling that you respect their opinion. You're giving them a small opportunity to step into a position of confidence, to feel useful. And second, because they're doing you a small favor offering advice or help, they start to perceive you as someone they care about, even if just slightly. That shift is often enough to soften their walls and begin building a sense of openness. Now, this isn't about manipulation. That's important to understand. It's about creating authentic opportunities for connection by gently inviting the other person to invest in the interaction. You're not forcing vulnerability. You're making it easier for them to feel safe, respected, and a little more connected to you. This effect also works well in situations where there might be tension or hesitation. Let's say you're trying to have a deeper conversation with someone who's usually reserved. Instead of saying, "You never open up," or trying to pry them open, ask for their insight. Ask for their thoughts on a topic they care about. When they feel needed or valued for their perspective, it disarms that instinct to hold back. And here's another layer that makes this work even more effectively. The favor should be just small enough not to feel like a burden. You're not asking for their time or their energy in a draining way. You're asking for a spark of input. That could be an opinion, a recommendation, a personal tip. These micro-asks create micro-bonds. They don't feel like heavy lifts, but over time they plant the seeds of connection. Something else tends to happen once someone does you a favor. They become more curious about you. Curiosity is a key door to openness. If you've ever found yourself helping someone, you probably also found yourself wondering about their story, even if you didn't realize it. It's human nature. We want to make sense of our actions, and that means we start assigning more meaning to the relationship. That's how connection deepens, not just through long conversations or emotional vulnerability, but often through the tiniest interactions that sends signals of mutual value. The Ben Franklin effect creates one of those signals. It tells the other person, "You matter to me, and I trust you enough to ask something from you." So rather than trying to impress, convince, or overly share, flip the focus, ask, invite, let them help you in a small way. And watch what that does to the emotional atmosphere between you. Because people open up when they feel there's a balance, when the conversation doesn't just flow in one direction, but when both sides get to participate in creating the connection. When you ask someone for help, advice, or even their opinion, you're putting a gentle weight on the scale of human interaction that says, "I see you. I respect what you know. I want to hear you." That's a powerful foundation to build from. And once you've created that sense of closeness through a small ask, you'll often find the door begins to open just a little. Maybe they share something about themselves. Maybe their tone becomes warmer, or their eyes linger longer. These are all signs of trust beginning to form, and they all started with a single, intentional request. Now, once that initial connection is made, it's important to keep the energy flowing naturally. You don't want to break rapport by shifting into performance mode. Instead, the next step is to subtly strengthen that connection by matching the energy they're giving you. That's where we move into our second psychology hack, learning how to mirror, not mimic their energy in a way that makes them feel seen and safe. Once you've laid the foundation of connection using a small ask, the Ben Franklin effect, the next layer is something even more subtle, but just as powerful, matching the other person's energy. Not in an artificial, robotic way, but in a warm, human, intuitive way that signals, "I'm right here with you." Because once someone has begun to engage with you, the way you show up, how you hold space for them, can either deepen the trust or quietly shut it down. This is where mirroring comes in, but not just the kind we typically associate with body language. We're talking about full spectrum energy matching, tone, pace, rhythm, even emotional temperature. Think about the last time you talked to someone who felt off. Maybe you were feeling vulnerable or low energy, and they came at you with relentless enthusiasm. Or maybe you were excited and ready to share something personal, but they responded with monotone disinterest or distracted glances. Those mismatches don't just make conversations awkward, they subtly tell our brains, this person isn't tuned in. And when we sense someone isn't in sync with us, even if they mean well, we instinctively protect ourselves. We shut down, we hold back. On the flip side, when someone meets us where we are, when their energy mirrors ours in a natural, respectful way, it tells a very different story. It says, "I see you, I get you, you're safe here." That's the real magic of this hack. It helps people feel emotionally safe without a single word of reassurance. Now, to use this effectively, it's important to understand that this isn't about copying someone. It's not about mimicking their gestures or parroting their words. That's superficial and usually backfires. People can feel when they're being imitated, and it creates discomfort. What we're going for is alignment. Emotional alignment. You're tuning into the vibe of the moment, then adjusting yourself just enough to help the other person feel understood. Let's say you're talking to someone who's clearly nervous or shy. If you come at them with high energy and rapid-fire questions, they'll likely retreat even more. But if you slow down your pace, soften your tone, and match their calm or quiet energy, you create a kind of resonance that puts them at ease. It's like you're speaking their emotional language without needing a translation. That's when people begin to relax. That's when walls start to come down. The beauty of this approach is that it works in almost any setting. Whether you're connecting with a colleague at work, supporting a friend who's having a tough day, or trying to get a more introverted family member to share how they're really feeling. Matching energy helps you move from surface level interaction into something deeper and more honest. You'll notice that when your energy mirrors theirs, people don't just talk more, they talk differently. Their voice might soften, their body might shift slightly toward you, their eyes might lift. These are micro signals of openness, and they happen not because you asked the right question, but because you created the right emotional climate. It's important to remember, though, that energy matching is dynamic. It evolves. As someone starts to feel more safe with you, their energy might rise. They might start gesturing more, speaking faster, smiling wider, and here's the opportunity. You can slowly rise with them. Your job isn't to stay in the mood they started in. It's to meet them there and gently move with them as the emotional temperature shifts. That's how rapport deepens. This isn't just theory. Neuroscience backs this up. Our brains are wired with what are called mirror neurons. These neurons help us understand and reflect the emotions of others. When we observe someone's emotional state, our mirror neurons activate as if we were experiencing the same feeling. It's how we build empathy, and when you're consciously aligning your energy with someone else's, you're activating that empathic feedback loop. You're not just telling them, "I care." You're showing it on a neurological level. Let's also talk about how this applies in more emotionally charged moments. Suppose someone is venting, frustrated, overwhelmed, maybe even angry. The instinct for many people is to try to calm them down quickly. We say things like, "Just relax," or "It's not a big deal," with good intentions, but what we're really doing is invalidating their emotional state. That breaks rapport. A better approach: match the seriousness of their tone first. Nod, say, "Yeah, that sounds incredibly frustrating." Let them feel felt. Once they know you're emotionally present, then you can start to gently guide the conversation to a more grounded place. But first, match. First, join them in their space. This approach also helps people open up when they're not even sure what they're feeling. Sometimes the reason someone isn't talking much isn't because they don't want to, but because they haven't found the words yet. They're still figuring it out. If you can sit in that uncertainty with them, not rush, not fix, not overtalk, but just be in rhythm with their processing pace, they'll often find themselves speaking more freely. Not because you pushed them, but because you allowed the space for it. Matching energy is one of the most respectful things you can do in a conversation. It says you don't have to be different to be heard. You can just be you, and I'll adjust to meet you. That's deeply comforting. That's what creates those conversations where, at the end, someone says, "I don't know why, but I just felt comfortable talking to you." So think about it like this: the first psychology hack, asking for a small favor, opens the door, it gets you inside. But this second one, matching their energy, is what invites you to stay. It helps build that atmosphere where people don't just feel heard, but understood on a gut level. And in that space, people stop performing and start revealing. Once someone feels both invested in you and emotionally aligned with you, they're more likely to share what's real. They're more likely to drop the surface talk and trust you with their inner world. But to truly unlock that level of openness, there's one more piece that brings it all together: learning how to reflect what they're feeling in words, even when they haven't said it directly. That's where we move to our final psychology hack, the simple but transformative power of emotion labeling. Once someone feels emotionally aligned with you, when they've helped you with a small favor, and you've matched their energy with presence and care, the next natural step is helping them find words they might not be able to say yet, because often people want to open up. They just don't know how. They don't know where to begin, or they've learned that it's not always safe to say what they really feel. That's where this third hack comes in. It's called emotion labeling, and it has a disarming kind of power. It helps people feel seen, not just heard. And when someone feels seen, truly seen, it becomes much easier for them to trust and talk. Emotion labeling is simple on the surface. It's the act of gently naming what you think someone might be feeling. Not in a judgmental way, not in a way that corners them, but in a way that invites them to confirm or correct what you're noticing. And when done well, this one small move can unlock a depth of conversation that questions alone often can't. Let me give you a clear example. Let's say you're sitting with a friend who seems quiet, distant, distracted. Instead of saying, "What's wrong?" or "Do you want to talk about it?" you might try something like, "You seem a little off today, maybe overwhelmed." What you're doing in that moment is incredibly validating. You're not pushing them to explain. You're offering them a mirror. You're giving shape to a feeling they might not have even processed fully themselves. And most importantly, you're doing it without pressure. The psychology behind this is solid. Studies in emotional regulation show that when someone names a feeling, when they label it, they reduce its intensity. It becomes more manageable. That's true even when you are the one doing the labeling. You're essentially helping someone get a handle on what's going on inside. Think of it like turning a blurry image into something slightly clearer. Once there's clarity, it becomes easier to speak. This is particularly helpful when someone is caught in a swirl of emotions. Maybe they're upset but can't explain why. Maybe they're withdrawn but don't know how to ask for support. Instead of pressing them to talk or asking endless questions, try observing and gently naming. You could say, "You seem kind of tense, like your mind's somewhere else." Or you don't have to say anything, "But I'm picking up a bit of sadness. That's what it feels like. Does that sound right?" These phrases don't demand a response. They open a door. And what's amazing is how often people do walk through that door. They'll say, "Yeah, I've been feeling that way, actually." Or sometimes, not sadness exactly, more like disappointment. Either way, you've helped them make sense of something, and you've shown them that it's okay to bring that part of themselves into the conversation. It's important to understand that emotion labeling isn't about being right. You don't need to perfectly identify someone's feeling. In fact, being slightly off can be just as effective because it gives the other person permission to clarify. You're not diagnosing, you're inviting, and that invitation can feel like a relief. People spend so much of their lives masking emotions, especially in social or professional settings, that when someone finally notices and gently names what's going on, it often feels like exhaling. After holding your breath, another way to use this is when someone does start opening up, but gets stuck halfway. Maybe they start telling a story, then pause, or they begin to describe something hard, then brush it off. That's a moment where you can reflect what you're sensing. Say something like, "That sounds like it hit you harder than you're letting on." Or "It seems like you're holding back something there. Am I off?" These aren't accusations, they're reflections. You're holding up a mirror with empathy and asking, "Is this what you're feeling?" The key here is tone. Emotion labeling works best when your tone is soft, grounded, and open, not clinical or confrontational. You're not interrogating. You're offering understanding, and your body language matters just as much. Are your shoulders relaxed? Are you making gentle eye contact? Are you signaling with your whole presence that this space is safe, that you're listening without agenda? People don't open up because we ask perfect questions. They open up because they feel safe, understood, and not judged. Emotion labeling helps create all three of those conditions at once. It bypasses the need for someone to explain from scratch. Instead, it says, I've been paying attention, I care enough to notice, and I respect you enough not to demand an answer. Now, this doesn't mean you should go around labeling everyone's emotions all the time. The point isn't to analyze people. It's to tune into them with real care, and then speak what you're sensing only when it serves connection. Sometimes just holding space in silence is more powerful than any words. But when the moment's right, a gentle observation can act like a key, a quiet unlocking. And here's something else to keep in mind. When you label an emotion and someone confirms it, that moment creates intimacy, not in a forced or dramatic way, but in the way trust naturally forms. It says, you get me. And sometimes, just one moment like that is enough to change the course of a relationship from guarded and surface level to open and genuine. All of these techniques, asking for a small favor, matching someone's energy, and labeling what they're feeling, are not about manipulation. They're about presence. They're about tuning in more deeply than we usually do. They work because they reflect fundamental truths about human connection, that people want to feel needed, mirrored, and understood. When we give others that kind of attention, it creates a safe container for real conversation. And in that container, people open up not because they have to, but because they want to. That's the power of connection done with intention.